Folks, I don't know how I did this, but I loaded the wrong soundtrack again. That was Babylon 5. That was not my intro, so let's go without the intro today. This is Royce of Paranormal Palace Radio, also known as the Redneck Radio Man. And joining me is going to be Bill Bean, and I've been trying for some time to get hooked up with him and get him on the show. He's got quite a story to tell. He's gone through a very, very upsetting experience in his childhood with ghostly and or demonic activity. He's experienced this here for many years. It caused a huge upset in his family, a whole big life-changing event that's all worked around to lead him where he's at today. So I'm going to let Bill, come in and tell y'all a little bit more about this, that he could probably do a lot better than I can. Bill, it's a pleasure to have you on today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Royce. And yeah, it's been a long time coming. And, I just want to thank you guys for having me on. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on with you. And, God does break things around in His time. We've been trying to do this for quite some time, and we finally achieved it today. So we praise Him for that. And yeah, I'm a walking miracle. My story is miraculous in the sense of being where I'm at now, and it has come full circle. I was a victim and experiencer of these horrific events, and it all began. I've written 2 books. My first book is called Dark Force. The second book is called Delivered, and I'm currently working on my third book, which is called 10 Steps to Victory. And, I say in Dark Force that it began in 1970 when my family and I moved into a 3-bedroom ranch-style home located in Glen Burnie, Maryland, in a community called Herondale. But it actually goes much further back than that, Royce. I had found out additional information after writing Dark Force from a family member. I had very little family left. My family was decimated, and this evil force greatly contributed to some of the untimely deaths in my family.
You think you moved that force into the family with you when you moved into the building?
Yeah, well, it goes much further back, and I found this additional information out that someone in the family many, many, many years ago had done something to conjure these demonic forces, and it greatly affected the family. I was told by my uncle that my mother's brother, that my mother and her siblings, she had a brother and a sister, they were twins, and they all had paranormal supernatural experiences in their childhoods. And they moved around quite a bit as children, and at one point in their childhood, they lived in that very area near that house where these horrible events took place. So again, we see a correlation and a pattern, so it's my belief based on that information that my family was led to that house where evil was already present and manifest, and that's why it was so severe, because we were being attacked on 2 fronts, from the evil force that guided us there and the evil that was already present and manifest, because the area itself had and currently still has wickedness going on there, and a lot of just bizarre things have taken place in the area and continue to take place. I get messages from people to this very day who tell me about their experiences in their homes or whatever they may be experiencing in the area, and it's just quite amazing the messages I get just from that area alone.
Bill, pardon my interruption, but I wanted to mention your voice is breaking up.
Uh-oh. Is that any better now, Royce?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Yeah, so again, we see these correlations, and many people have been affected by paranormal supernatural activity in the Glen Burnie, Herondale area. I still get messages from people to this very day telling me about their experiences. And so my mom was the first to have an experience in the house. And my parents were very good people, Royce. They were, my mom was a wonderful lady, great mother, great wife, homemaker. My dad, William Sr., he was a master carpenter. He was a contractor, very, very good man, hardworking family man. My mother, Patricia, again, very good woman. They were social drinkers. They loved to have family gatherings. And, we had some of these gatherings in the beginning. And it wasn't long after, though, that my dad's character began to abruptly change. And, again, my mom was the first to have an experience in the house. My dad had taken us, I have an older sister, Patty and a younger brother, Bobby. And he had taken us with him for the day to allow my mom to unpack and organize alone in peace without us bothering her. And it's during the course of this that she felt the presence. She thought in her mind it was my dad sneaking back in to play a joke on her. And she spun around fully anticipating on seeing him. And to her shock, nothing was there. So as you can imagine, she was unnerved by it, taken aback by it, confused, but eventually able to go back to doing what she was doing. And that's when one of the bedroom doors slammed shut by itself, and that was enough to make her go out and wait until we returned. So that's where it began. And it gradually escalated into violent physical attacks on us from these demonic entities. And I have to tell you, I was four when we moved into the house. And the house had a very ominous look and feel about it from the very beginning. I was frightened. My first recollections of the house were not good ones.
Okay, now one of the things I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind me cutting in real quick, Bill, is were y'all originally Christians at the time you moved in, or did you devote your life to God after all the things that you ended up having to experience?
Well, that's a great question. My parents believed in God, but we didn't really have any faith-based structure in the sense that we didn't attend church. We never once attended church as children. We were never baptized. Yet, even as a young child, I always had this blind faith in God. I knew that he was real. I knew that he was with me, but I didn't know anything else. And, here we endured all of these things. And again, the activity increased from that moment that I described with my mother into actual violent physical attacks on us from these demonic entities. And this kind of abuse went on for many, many years. And it is miraculous that I'm able to even give interviews in the way that I do. It's miraculous that I'm sane, and it's miraculous that I'm even here on this earth because, my life could have went the other way very easily and very quickly. So, again, God had a plan for me, and I forever praise him for it. But, my dad was such a good man, and he was someone that was abundantly blessed with every physical attribute necessary to be highly successful in life. And it's just so sad the way his life turned out because, this was someone I saw as a heroic type of individual that suddenly began to have an abrupt character change. And I think what was happening is he came under spiritual attack, and he didn't know how to deal with it. He was a man's man, very rugged individual, and was always in control of the situation. And this was something that he couldn't control. And I think that with him not being able to control the situation, it absolutely drove him and led him to try and escape this reality by drinking. And I mean, drinking very heavily. Again, my parents were social drinkers, but he began to drink very heavily, and he began to spend nights in the bars, and suddenly the nights turned into the days as well, and his business began to suffer, and everything, it was the downward spiral from there. And he unfortunately began to physically abuse my mother on a regular basis between 1973 and 1975, nearly killing her, on several occasions, and just, horrific memories of that alone. And I could tell you this, based on what I witnessed over and over, that there's no doubt in my mind he was under demonic influence while, under the influence of alcohol. And, when we're in a stupor, a state of being, under the influence of a drug or alcohol or whatever it may be, these demonic forces are able to really come in then and manipulate a person to do things that are way out of character. And I absolutely believe that's what was taking place, with him.
Right. Now, but you did say earlier that you was having this going on before, but you just weren't aware of it. And what I asked earlier, I don't think you gave a direct answer to, I don't think you quite caught, was so what you're basically telling me is that this house may not have had no activity until y'all got there and you unwittingly brought it with you.
Well, actually, no, Royce. I believe that there was activity there prior to us going there because of the area. The area in itself has high wickedness, and there is a structure located 2 miles south from that house in the middle of the woods called the Wishing Rock. And a good friend of mine, a retired police officer, John D. Romine, wrote a book about this. And according to his research, Native Americans used to gather and worship at that structure, saying that it had supernatural powers, and it is quite possible that it is a dimensional doorway or vortex or whatever it may be that allows these entities to come through, and it has greatly affected the entire area. You know, I get messages from many people to this day in that area telling me about their experiences.
Okay. So now
we had a combination of, you know, what had taken place prior to moving in, and then once we got there. So that's why it was so severe for us. I mean, we were just absolutely clobbered from all sides with this.
Oh, I would imagine so. I imagine I would have been too, spiritually and emotionally easily right from the beginning.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were, you know, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just thinking, but I was curious, your father, because when I read about him, all that he went through, has he ever made a full recovery?
Well, he's no longer with us. Neither of my parents lived to see the age of 50, and both had untimely deaths. My dad was shot to death in 1987. And,
that's so, right. Yeah, that was in the book, and I forgot all about it.
Yeah, neither lived to see the age of 50, and very tragic the way both of their lives suddenly ended.
I am so sorry. I finished reading your book like last week, and by the time the week went by, I forgot about having read that part.
Well, I thank you for taking the time to read it, and you're asking excellent questions. And look, you know, these things, it was very painful to sit and write the book. It was very, very difficult. This is where I really had to rely on God to help me. And when I first sat down to try and do it, I just couldn't do it. It just didn't seem like anything would flow right. I was ready to give up on the whole thing. And I prayed about it, and I said to God, I said, if you really want me to do this, I need your help. And sure enough, it wasn't long after that. It was like a switch had turned on, and then everything began to flow, and I was able to do it. And I ended up committing 2 to 4 hours every night of writing this until it was done. And it was a very painful process because I had to step back in and relive those events all over again. And so it was not easy, but I knew it was necessary because it has had such a positive impact on so many, and that's what this is all about. Yeah, it's a horrible story. I don't take any joy in sharing horrible things with people. However, that is not the message. The message is a message of hope and faith that God can deliver us from some of the worst circumstances in life if we trust in Him. And we can end up having a good and blessed life as the end result. So that's what the real story is about.
To keep faith, right. Now, also, I wanted to mention to everybody that if you want to learn more about Bill, you can go to his website, www.billbean.net. If you scroll down below the chat room, you'll see his image with his Dark Force, title up above it. You'll see his link right below that. If you scroll down, you'll see his whole description, everything about him. You'll see both of his books linked over to Amazon, where you can go ahead and purchase them. Well, one of them is delivered, I think, is linked through PayPal, and the other one's linked through Amazon. And you can see all the places he's been on the air and everything, and learn everything you need to know about him. If you guys are listening at iTunes or YouTube, we'd love to have you over here at www.paranormalpalace.com. And I wanted to get that out before I forgot, and I also wanted to mention if you've got questions, the call-in number is 832-632-7904. And Bill, I would like to take a minute to ask my co-hosts
sure.
If they've got something they'd like to ask, because I know they've been probably storing up a couple of questions that they've been anxious to get to while they were looking forward to the show. Say, what about you, Gerald? You got some questions you want to ask?
Well, yes, I do. First off, Bill, I just want to say you are an encouragement. And the whole time I'm listening to you speak, man, I just want you to know I feel your spirit, and I feel the presence of God just hearing you.
Thank you, my brother. I really appreciate that.
Yes, sir. My question is going through this and you're seeking God and everything around you. At one point, did you say, God, I just feel like giving up, but, instead I'm going to press on,
Yeah, and that, and I can recall, just as you're saying this to me, it was very difficult, when we were in that situation and we had those horrific things happening. I still never wavered in my faith. I can remember times my poor mother, she suffered more than anybody because after sustaining all those beatings from my dad. Thank God he left us in 1975. But the unfortunate thing is, my mother never got a break either after he left, because what had happened is when he left us at 75, my mother came under regular physical attack from the entities. And so she never got a break, and this was going on up until the time of her untimely death. And so this was, just a horrible thing. And I can recall times of my mother just being absolutely exasperated and shouting out to God, why are you letting this happen? How could you do this to us? How can you let this happen? And it was just, it's gut-wrenching when you think of things like that. But everything is for a reason. I wish that I could go back and change those things. I really do. Certainly when it came to the abuse of my mother and things like that. If I could change it, I would. I can't. So the only thing I can do now is listen to the calling that God has put on me and follow that calling and try to reach out and help other people. So that's what it's all about for me now. It's just helping others.
Gerald, is there anything else?
He pretty much just basically covered it. I'm just sitting here, and as I'm listening, I'm just in awe because, and I really can't say it enough. I mean, Bill, you are encouraging. You really are.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate that. We praise God for it.
I am fully enjoying you, man. And you know what? I'm thankful that you're even on the show, because you're a blessing.
Thank you. And, again, this is something that when I became free from all of this, and I really didn't become free from this until like 2008, because I was still having events take place from time to time, even when I was giving show interviews and stuff like that. Now I've probably given 1,000 or more media interviews, and some of those interviews and shows, things were happening during that. People would hear voices or manifestations, see manifestations, things of that nature. So I really wasn't totally free from it until my wife and I got baptized in December of 2008, and it was the most wonderful day because, finally I had officially said, okay, God, you are number one in my life, and we give it all to you, and it was a real commitment. And after that, we've been abundantly blessed. I don't have that garbage in my life anymore, and I thought, okay, once I'm free from it, then that's it. I don't want any more to do with any of this stuff. I don't want to get my hands dirty anymore. But yet what was happening is people were contacting me, and I was getting messages from all over the world. I still do. And people were in need, many people in need. And at first I thought, well, I can't do anything about this. What do I do with this? And I prayed about it, and God put it on me that, he was calling me to minister to these people and to help them. And I resisted that for a while. I really did. And finally, I could not ignore it anymore. And I said, okay, Father, I understand what you're doing here. Your will be done. I will obey. And that's it. And ever since, it's just been amazing. God has used me to be like a beacon light to people. And I'm just, my book is full. If you saw my book, you'd just be amazed at the amount of people that are contacting me on a daily basis for prayer, for deliverance, and for advice. And again, you're talking with someone that has an 8th grade education. However, I'm ashamed to say that in one sense, but I am very proud and very grateful to God for leading me to knowledge and wisdom far beyond anything that I could ever imagine in my life. And I made a real effort to do serious studies into many things to broaden my intellect and knowledge. So I'm very, very proud and happy about that.
Okay. Now, also, Gerald, if you don't mind me coming in on this one while you were chatting, we had a question in the Skype from actually Bill's most avid fan, I think. She wants to know, she says, I know it's hard to actually admit there is something like this demon working in your lives. How did it come about that you faced the demonic intervention was what it truly was? In other words, how did you come to terms with the fact that it was a demon instead of a ghost, is I think what she's saying?
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, unfortunately, there were many factors in this to, for people to understand that this was demonic, and it greatly contributed to the destruction of my family. Again, after my dad left, These things were coming to my mom's bed. They were choking her. My mother had cuts, bruises, and scratches on her long after my dad had left. And, one incident, she was being choked by this entity. She was awakened out of her sleep by this entity choking her. And after the episode ends, she gets out of bed. She's gasping for air. She goes up the hallway to go into the kitchen to get a glass of water. And when she opened the cupboard door, an unseen force shot a glass out and struck her right in the head, above her eye, busted her eye wide open, knocked her out, and she had to be taken to the hospital and stitched up. This is the kind of thing that we were under quite often. And it was torment and suffering and abuse that I wouldn't wish on anyone. I suffered many attacks myself over the years from the age of 5. But my mother suffered far greater than any of us. And also what I failed to mention was that my mom was very ill the entire time we lived in the house. She was suffering from high blood pressure, which led to strokes and then ultimately kidney failure. So she was very sick, and then sustained those beatings on top of it. When my dad left, he left us in such a bad way that we were financially just destroyed. And I'm ashamed to tell you guys, we had to go on welfare. My mom couldn't work. She was very sick. She couldn't work. My dad was not sending any money home. And it was just awful. We ended up losing the house. The house was auctioned off at a public auction in the front yard. The man that bought the house in the auction was aware of our situation and my mother's circumstances, and he let us stay there on a pay-as-you-can, when-you-can basis. That's the most frequently asked question, why did you stay? Well, there weren't many options, and my mother was a very proud and private woman. She did not want to burden anyone. She was very embarrassed and ashamed by this whole thing. Did not want us talking with anybody about this, so very few people we discussed it with until the end. And my mother's mother wanted us to come stay with her, but she and my step-grandfather shared a one-bedroom apartment, and my mother was not going to be a burden to them with us. And my mother's sister wanted us to come stay with her, but she had 8 children and a husband. And again, my mother was not going to burden anyone. So that is the most frequently asked question. And I'll tell you this, the longer we stayed there, each and every one of us came under demonic oppression at various times, and we all did things that were way out of character.
Yeah, I read about that, like the pyro, for example.
That's right. That's exactly right. And, again, this was something that I felt I had no control over. It was a compulsion. I'm very ashamed by it and very embarrassed to talk about it now, but it's true. It happened. I'm sorry for it. And that put lives at risk, to go and set the woods on fire like that, many times. And, in that area, and let me I'll paint a quick picture of this house and the area around it. The house sits at the bottom of a downhill cul-de-sac, and when we first moved in, it was semi-dilapidated, so my dad, being a master carpenter, saw this as a restoration project, which he did a great deal of work in restoring it. However, the inside, was equally, that the house had this vibe, it was just ominous and foreboding, and the inside equally so. And the inside was very dark. It dark brown paneling on the walls, almost black in color, so it was always very dark, and the air was always very heavy, just a very negative, heavy vibe in the house. You would walk in through the front door, and then you would make a right down a long hallway, and the hallway had a hard tile floor, and often we would hear footsteps coming down that hallway, which would reverberate off of the paneling, very loud. And I shared a room with my brother. It was the first room on the right. My parents' room was the second room on the right, and my sister's room was the last room on the left across the hallway. We call that the back bedroom. That's the room where it would stay cold even on the hottest of summer days, and it's also the room where the door would open and slam for many repetitions at a time. So and then you would come back up the hallway and might make a right into a dining room with a small kitchen off of that. So if you came back up the hallway and made a right, you would go into the dining room, and then the back door would be there. So you would go out the back door, and there was a very long and large ravine behind our house. So you would go into our backyard, which was a fenced-in yard, but over the fence was this very deep and wide and long ravine, and a lot of roughage lined each side of the ravine, so the ravine would slope down on both sides, and you would have concrete with a little stream running through that, in the middle. And, many times, while under this demonic oppression, I would take my little brother along with me, and then the boy that lived catty corner to us, and we would set these fires in the woods, and it was horrible. And again, praise God that no one got hurt. It nearly cost my brother his life, and it could have cost other lives as well, and loss of property and loss of wildlife and all of these things. I mean, this was terrible, and the fire department would have to come and put these things out, and I'm very sorry for it. Believe me, I'm very ashamed to talk about it, but it really happened. It's true. Nearly cost my brother his life, and we were nearly destroyed by these demonic forces just from that aspect alone. So each and every one of us at various times would come under this demonic oppression.
Right. And my wife was also mentioning, because she kind of relates to you in one respect. She happened to join us today. Her parents...
Well, I want to say hi to her.
Her parents recently died in a car crash suddenly this last Christmas. And she's wanting to know, since you lost yours suddenly, how did you manage?
Oh, it was so tough, Royce. I'm very sorry to... please tell your wife. What is your wife's name?
Carol.
Carol, I'm very, very sorry to hear this, and God bless you. And it was very difficult for me because when we finally left that house in 1980, and December of 1980, we woke up one morning to the pungent odor of burning wires. Every electrical appliance that was plugged in suddenly burned up at once. And my mother at this point in time had a new man in her life, very much like my dad, very rugged individual, former boxer, was not afraid of anyone or anything, but yet was physically attacked in the house many times and was terrified to be there. So we ended up leaving there and moving with him. His name was Richard. And I thought that we were free from it. My brother and I didn't have any experiences at Richard's house while living there. However, I saw Richard a few years ago, and he had promised my mom not to tell us that she was still having those experiences up until the time of her untimely death. And it wasn't long after moving out of the house that two tragedies had suddenly occurred. And the first was my beloved grandmother, Dora Harvey, died from a series of heart attacks. And then 2 months and 2 days later, my beloved mother, Patricia Bean, died from a cerebral hemorrhage at the age of 44. Those are the two closest people to me in my life, and they were suddenly gone, so it was just horrible. And then, I carried such a burning hatred for my dad, unfortunately, for many years, for all these things that had taken place. And now I understand, and I'm thankful that I was able to forgive him for his untimely death because he was shot to death in 1987. So I was able to forgive him, thank God, and get that anger out and off of me. And now I realize that he was more of a victim of circumstance that just didn't know how to deal with it than such an awful perpetrator in everything. But it was very, very difficult, Royce. I was zombie-like after my mom had passed like that. And again, my grandmother had passed 2 months before that. So I was grieving her, and then, then my mom's gone like that. It was just... I was like a zombie, to be honest with you. I was like a zombie for weeks. I was beyond reality. And I was so dark and empty for so long. I can recall times of sitting in total darkness, in silence and darkness for a whole day at a time till it was time to go to bed. I would get up, use the bathroom, come back and sit in a dark room in silence until it was time to go to bed. And that's the kind of darkness and emptiness I was going through, and I didn't want to live anymore. I had no will to live, and I tried to do things to bring on my death, to be honest with you. I lived on the edge for a long time, and but yet God had another plan for me, so it was very, very difficult. After my dad, was shot to death like that, same thing. It was just very numb. Of course it hurt, but I didn't share that with anybody. It was very numb to everything, and again, that pain stayed inward, and it stayed that way for a very, very long time. So again, I have to praise God for lifting all of that off of me. And this is a very important part of my work now, is when I minister and counsel with people, and when I perform deliverance for them, I call that a spiritual oil change. So what happens is Satan and his minions build up all this gunk over and in us, from these things that are negative and hurtful and all these terrible things, we have to get that out. So when I'm performing these deliverances, I ask these people to close their eyes and picture themselves in total darkness. And I ask them to bring up all these hurtful things in their mind and all of these, horrific things and everything that's bothering them. Then I want them to see an immense light, which is God's light, that shines out of that darkness and illuminates the darkness. And then I want them to see a window, and I want them to visualize opening the window and tossing all of that junk right out of that window. And I say to them, I want God's light. I want them to allow it to come into them and fill them from their feet to the top of their head. And all of that junk that is inside, I want that replaced with God's good and mighty energy. And this is how we begin our transformation. So if we believe it, we receive it, and then the real transformation takes place.
Okay. That sounds pretty good. I'm sure my wife can make use out of that. In fact,
anytime, and Royce, anytime that she needs to talk, anything that I can ever do, please have her contact me, and I'll certainly help in any way.
So it's okay to share your number with her?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, listen, I was also going to mention that John here, he's been waiting pretty patiently. John, did you have anything you wanted to throw in there?
I thought you had forgotten about me. Hi, Bill. Nice to meet
John.
you. I
it's
can
great
relate.
To meet you.
Okay. I can relate to your father very much. I'm a recovering alcoholic. And to answer Royce's question, no, you never get past it, Royce. You're never healed. It's always there. It's haunting you. And if you start it again, you'll take up. It won't be long, and you'll be right back where you started. I had my last drink on Halloween night, 1978. So unlike your father, Bill, I was able to kick it. But I still joke about being an old drinking buddy of the devil, and that I've been to his home, and I know that his home is at the bottom of the bottle. And so I was very much into that.
Well, you know what, brother? I've been there too. And my life very easily have gone the same way as my dad's with the heavy drinking, because, again, as I was approaching into my adult years, I made many mistakes, and I wrote about this in my second book, Delivered. I was not happy or proud to list some of the things that I've done in my life, but I could tell you this, I could very easily be in prison right now or dead. I've been in many life-threatening situations, and I was a heavy drinker, and I got violent when I drank. And, boy, I'll tell you, when they say beer, wine, and spirits, that's true, because spirits do go along with that alcohol. And when you become under the influence of that, you're in big trouble. And I know for me, what happened was I had finally prayed after striking my wife years ago. I prayed to God for God to take this from me and take it off of me. And sure enough, He did. And I haven't drank anything in almost 24 years now. And I would never drink anything like that.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, Bill. I think you got a sudden echo on your end there.
Uh-oh.
Sounds like you're talking
better?
No, but it sounds like you're talking to a tunnel with an echo.
Is that any better, Royce?
Not yet. John, did you by any chance disconnect anything on your end that could affect him?
No, I haven't done anything, but here, I'll mute for just a second and see what happens.
Okay, try it now, Bill.
Okay. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's just about right. So something must have happened on John's end that is, I don't know if he clicked something or something, but it was affecting more than just his own Skype, in other words.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry about that, and I hope that it's resolved now. I hope everybody can hear what we're saying. And, again, it's very important for people to understand that we all make mistakes in life. And if we fall 1,000 times, my philosophy is I'll get back up 1,001. We have to keep getting back up. We have to keep moving forward. And we can do it. We just have to realize that we have great power that is within us. God put that power within us when He created us. That's why we have power and dominion over the earth and every living thing, because God gave us that authority and that power.
Well, I'm with you on that there, only I worded it a little bit differently. My saying is, you never lose a battle until you quit. Until then, you're still in there, still fighting.
You're absolutely right, brother. So that is, that's a very important message for people to understand. But yeah, God took that drinking off of me, and I'm so thankful because, again, I haven't drank anything in almost 24 years, and I just prayed to him, please take it from me, take that desire, and he did, and I'm so thankful for it because my life would have been horribly different had I continued on that path.
Well, I continue to agree with you. I quit drinking 5 years ago and haven't went back cold turkey. Quit smoking at the same time.
Good for you, brother. Good for you. We praise God for it. So this is what I mean. People get into these patterns, and we're all susceptible to it. No man is better than another. We all are the same. We all make mistakes. But we cannot simply say, oh, well, this is who I am. This is what I do. I'll continue to be a drug addict or an alcoholic or whatever it may be. And I can't do anything about it. Well, that's not true. We can do something about it. We can do something about it by our choice. If we choose to overcome these things, whatever it may be, we can do it. If we truly want to make a change in our life, then we make that conscious decision to do so. And furthermore, if we turn to God and ask him to help us and ask him to forgive us, abundant blessings will follow, and he will guide us through. My life is so blessed now that God makes a way where there is no way. Now, do I have problems like everybody else? Sure. We all have problems. We all have situations that come up. I don't worry about it because whatever comes up, God's got it, and he takes care of it, and he undoes anything that the enemy tries to do. Now, I believe that, and I receive that, and I live that way. And I also live by two things. God is number one in my life. I love him with everything that I have. And number two, I love my friend, neighbor, and brother as I would myself. That's it. I have no judgments on anybody. I don't shove any doctrine on anybody. People are free to make their choices. All I want to do is be in a position to help and to lead people back to God, or at least lead them to think anyway, just to try and inspire a thought or the possibility of someone examining not only my story, but examining how to become closer to God or to do research in steps leading them back to God. And it's all about being a blessing to someone. So if you could call me anything, I would hope you would call me a people builder, because that's what I try to do. I try to build people up in mind, body, and spirit, and I try to help them to become the best they can be so they can go help others to become the best that they can be.
Righty. Well, I notice we're about 30 minutes into this, and I don't want you to have time to, I don't want you to run out of time, is what I'm trying to say, to tell us about your movie coming up.
Yeah, that's another amazing thing. It really is. Now, in 2009, I was approached by another company, and I signed a movie option with them. They were the same company that did The Haunting in Connecticut, and, there was great promise there. So we thought that, it was really going to be a great thing. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way, and I was under contract for 2 years, and nothing really materialized out of it. And so I was kind of sour on the whole thing, to be honest with you. It had gone on for so long without anything happening, and they finally gave me the rights back in 2011. And I didn't think I would ever get another offer again. Well, wouldn't you know, that same company came back to me about a year later, in 2012, asking me to resign with them. And I almost did it, Royce. I really almost did it, because I didn't have anything else going on in that way. And I prayed about it. And I believe that God revealed to me that it was not the right thing to do. So I didn't do it. And right after that, this other company came, 35 millimeter pictures, and we connected, and it was just, I knew it was the right thing. These guys are great guys, and I knew it was right from the start. And they have done more in a short amount of time than the other company did in 2 years. And so I'm so grateful and thankful for that. And right now the working title is Dark Force the Movie. They have the script written, the screenplay written, and we are hopeful of beginning the filming in March. And it's very exciting. It really is. It's exciting in one sense, But again, it's going to be another difficult thing once I get on the set because I'm going to be the executive producer, on the movie, and we are presenting this in an authentic way. So we are going to present it with the actual events that took place, and it's going to be a very, very powerful depiction. And it's also going to be a test of faith for me again, because it's very disturbing to again go back and revisit these things, but this time visually. So God will get me through it, and we praise Him for it. But the first thing I'm going to do, the very first moment that we set foot on that movie set is I'm going to bless it, and we're going to seal up all doors that the enemy would try and get through to cause any kind of problems, and we're going to seal and sanctify that movie set.
Okay. Well, that certainly has covered an awful lot in the short time that we've been on here, like you was saying before we actually started.
We knew we would. Yeah, Royce, we knew we would be able to cover the bases on a lot of stuff. And again, I'm very grateful to Dale Lays and 35mm Pictures for being a part of this and for, wanting to do this story. And it's the most, again, what I want people to get out of this, the most important thing is the message. And what we're going to do at the end of the film, in the ending credits, is we are going to have information there for anyone that may be watching that movie that is having problems, similar problems, or any kind of problems of a spiritual nature. We'll have the information there for those people to be able to contact me, to reach out and contact me. So, again, I think it's going to be a very, very powerful presentation, but
and you're going to be swamped.
Thing. Yes. Yeah. I'm already swamped, Royce, but it's okay. It's a good thing, and God helps me to navigate through everything, and I praise Him for it.
Well, what I was fixing to mention, though, is if you're coming into town, how does somebody get you to their church to do a presentation?
Yeah, and I would love that. What they can do is contact me at billbean.net, www.billbean.net. You can email me directly from the site. So anyone out there who would love to, like to have me come to their town or come to have me, give a presentation at their church, who are seeking me out for prayer or for deliverance, please, I urge you to contact me. This is a blessing from God. I don't turn anyone away. And I'm getting ready to fly to Chicago here very soon to help a family in need there. I've been everywhere, Royce. I mean, not just for my lectures. And now I've been everywhere all over the country helping people with deliverances as well. I mean, some of these people that have come to me are just suicidal. I mean, just absolutely suicidal at the end of the rope, no hope, no faith, no help, and have been turned away by their churches, by their pastors, and some of these pastors tell them that they're not equipped to handle it. They need to pray more. They have a lack of faith and things of this nature, and it's just wrong. And I'm just thankful that, again, that God has me in this position to be able to help.
Yeah, I think it's great you're in a position to help, too, and a position to get around. When do you think you might be in the Houston area again?
I'm hoping soon. I really am now. What we're, again, we were supposed to begin filming in March, and if that does take place then, I would be on the movie set probably for 6 to 8 weeks. But I also plan on making appearances during that time, so we're going to have long days on the set. However, I'm going to be able to still fly places and make appearances or minister to people, whatever the case may be. We're going to work it out to where I still am quite active and involved with helping people. So I'm hoping, I know I want to put an event on in Dallas, and we were shooting for that probably for the summer of 2013, but I would love to also visit Houston and make some appearances there. I absolutely fell in love with Houston when I was there before. Loved it, gave a couple lectures down there, and very much look forward to coming back.
Well, my wife's going to a Baptist church down here that may be interested in having you.
That would be great. Yeah, if they're interested, please, give them my information, and it would be my honor and pleasure to come.
It'd be a pleasure to meet you in person. I mean, after talking to you so much in the past.
Yeah, it would be my honor and pleasure. You guys are great guys, and I've very much enjoyed this. And any time that I can be of any service or help in any way, please don't hesitate.
We appeared to contracted another echo again for some odd reason.
Uh-oh.
Huh.
Is that better?
I think so. Okay.
That's bizarre.
Anyway, getting back to your books, though, before we forget this here, do you have any more new books coming out in the future?
Yes, I'm currently working on my third book called 10 Steps to Victory. In that book, Royce, about 6 weeks ago, I was asleep. It was a Saturday morning, and I was awakened out of my sleep, and I saw this image in my mind. This was God. God put this image in my mind. He showed me the book cover. He showed me my picture on the book cover, and he showed me the title, 10 Steps to Victory. So I got right up, and I began to go to work on this thing. And this is going to be like probably a 50 or 60-page guidebook, like a handbook, if you will. People can keep this on them whenever they're having times of crisis, or they're having a bad day, or they need an inspirational word, something to motivate them, something to fill them in a good way. They will be able to open that book up, and it's going to be power-packed with just good scriptures and good positive messages and motivational, inspirational quotes, anything and everything that is good. I'm also going to have a section in there on spiritual warfare, what prayers to say, and daily affirmation prayers as well, as we ask God to help us to claim our victory each and every day.
Okay. Now, we didn't get a chance to talk on Delivered very much. You want to tell everybody a little something about what Delivered is all about?
Yeah, Delivered is the continuation of Dark Force. You know, these events did continue into my adult years, and it nearly destroyed me. You know, I was on a very destructive path, and I'm just so thankful that God delivered me from it. But also involved in Delivered was an account of a 22-day demonic possession to a loved one, and my involvement in frequent interaction and sightings of unidentified flying objects. And I do believe that in my case, these were demonic forces still at work trying to totally destroy me.
Okay. Now, one of the things I meant to ask you about your book earlier that we got sidetracked was you describe a number of events in your book taking place during the first 4 or 5 years, not to mention the problems leading your dad to drink. I could not help but wonder why he never sought help before it got out of control, in other words.
Well, back then, it was a totally different mindset. You know, you just didn't seek help for anything back then. You know, again, you certainly couldn't go and tell just anybody that you were having supernatural experiences. They would think you were crazy, you know, back in that era. And also, you just wouldn't go to a psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever it may be back then. You just didn't do it. It was a whole different type of mindset back then.
Okay. And another question I wanted to ask was, did anybody ever try to learn anything more about the actual history of the house and how it related to the activity it was having?
Well, I found out through John's research that the community was put together in the 40s, and I believe it was the mid-40s, and it was for the soldiers returning home from the war. And I had also been told that prior to that, many, many years, you know, before that it was called Saunders Rifle Range. And then before that, the area was very prominent with Native American. And in that ravine, there was an area that was just absolutely the most eerie part of that area. As I had mentioned, the ravine was, you know, dense with brush and trees and things of that nature. Yet in this one spot, it was just barren, and it was like red clay in the spot, and it was told to me that it was an Indian burial ground there. I don't know if that's true. I could certainly believe it. But I'll tell you, that was a very eerie place, and it did not match up with anything else down there.
Okay. Now, we still got 11 minutes remaining. Is there anything you would like to cover that we didn't get a chance to go into yet?
Well, I think we've done a really good job of covering a lot of things. And again, I'm just so blessed and thankful to be in this position. I get messages from people on a daily and nightly basis. And I praise God for giving me the energy and the strength to be able to answer these messages, and not only answer, but to be able to help these people. Royce, I had a call one time. I actually got an email very late at night. and this man told me that he was going to commit suicide. He just didn't want to live anymore. And so I said to him, here's my number, call me right now. He called, and it was just awful. He was despondent. I mean, it was just awful. And so I began to pray. And by the mighty power and mighty name of Yahweh and his son Yahshua Jesus, I bound those demonic entities and those spirits of suicide that were over him, and I cast them out and off and away from him. And I'm telling you, Royce, you could feel the whole thing lift. He said the same thing on his end. You could feel it lift off of him. And as it lifted off of him, I heard this big clunk. And he said, I just put the gun down. He was going to shoot himself in the head while on the phone with me.
That's an unpleasant thought.
He said he felt comfort in talking with me, and that would have given him the comfort, I guess, that someone would have been with him while he did this. And, I'm so thankful that, again, that was not the case. I've had just recently another wonderful, lady had contacted me, and she was at the end, she had attempted suicide 6 times and was on the verge again of doing this. And same thing. God lifted that foul spirit of suicide off of her. Her life is totally transformed. I just got a message from her today. She's doing wonderful. She's happy. And she is praising God every day for what he's done for her. She's doing studies of the Bible now. Her whole life has changed. And we praise him for it.
That's wonderful. I mean, that you're getting such a positive reaction out of that, and there's so much good that's coming out of this. But again,
and that's, again, Royce, we see the power of God. We see that he can make, yes, those events were horrible. I'm sorry they happened. Absolutely. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. We could go on and on and on if I were to list all the events that took place there, over that time period. And then in the course of my life, we know that these things are terrible. And I am just sorry that it happened. But I could not be where I'm at right now had it not been for those events. So in a strange way, it was like God was kind of preparing me for where I'm at now. So maybe it was necessary to experience some of those things. I don't know, but I'm just thankful and grateful now to be where I'm at.
And we know that these are not isolated incidents. I mean, think of the Bell Witch story. It was pretty similar. I recently had a lady on, had a book out called House of Darkness, House of Light, that described a lot of the same incidents that you describe. So these are not really isolated entities, ghostly or demonic phenomena can really occur anywhere, anytime, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. And, you will smell it as well. There are pungent odors that come along with these demonic entities and atmospheric changes. And in our case, I can recall times we'd be laying in bed. None of us ever got any sleep in that house, not proper rest. And there would be times that you could hear actual chanting out in the hallway. And you could never understand what they were. It was always muffled. You could never understand what they were chanting, but we would hear it often, unfortunately. And another thing that I failed to mention, Royce, and I know we're getting down here on time, is that I'd like for you to have me back again in the future if you could.
Sure.
And I'm going to make an announcement on your show that we have added, and I can't announce it yet until we're officially signed, but we have added someone that is definitely going to add some star power to the movie, and is a very well-known former WWE wrestling superstar and an actor as well. And we'll be making that announcement here very soon.
Okay, I'll be more than happy to do that. You got any idea roughly when you'd like that to be?
We'll have to. I'll get back with you. I'll send you an email. Maybe we could do it in a couple of weeks if you're available. If you're not all booked up.
I'll try to reserve a time for you. Matter of fact, I'll get in touch with you probably sometime tomorrow. But you are right about one thing. It's getting about time to wrap. And well, this here file is going to end on its own and start a fresh one here in about 6 minutes, and I'd hate to put up a second one for just 3 minutes worth of airtime, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you again, and I want to thank you guys. Again, it's been an honor and a pleasure. God bless all of you and your families. And I look forward to coming back to Houston. And I hope your church will bring me down and have me to come there, because as you can hear, we have a lot to talk about. There's never a shortage of things to talk about, and it's all good things now.
Well, maybe I'll invite you back. We'll do a different approach than me, say, for instance, reading your book and pulling out some select questions. Maybe we can just cover it from a conversational point of view and see where it goes.
Absolutely.
So, in the meantime, I want to thank you for having come, and it's been a pleasure to have you. I want to thank everybody listening. It's been you couldn't have a show without listeners any more than you could have one without a guest. You just running spaghetti without sauce there otherwise. Don't forget, you can get to Bill's site, www.billbean.net. He's got more information there. This show will be put in the archives tomorrow, the next day, and the links to his books will be there right along with his description, right along with his show. And you can always come join us here in chat at www.paranormalpalace.com. And, Bill, real quick, like, you have anything you want to say while you say goodbye?
Well, I want to thank all of you. Thank you, Royce. God bless you and all your families, and I look forward to coming back.
All right, John, you have anything you want to throw in there real quick?
No, I just hope he'll email us, let us know, or give us a heads up if he does come to Houston.
Absolutely, okay. I sure will.
If I get wind of it, I'll let you know, John.
Okay, appreciate it, Royce.
Now, Gerald, what about you? You got anything you want to throw out there real quick?
No, not really. He's touched everything as far as all my questions. He's answered pretty much all of them. Again, just grateful to have him here, man. He's awesome.
Thank you, my brother, and God bless all you guys. And I can't wait to meet you down in Houston. I can feel that's coming soon, so God's will be done. And once I get down there, it'll be a joyous occasion for sure, and look forward to meeting you guys and your families.
Okay, well, Bill, in the meantime, I'm going to look forward to hopefully getting to meet you one day down here in Houston. And I got your information. There's no reason you and me can't stay in touch.
You got that right, brother. Well, look, you guys have a great day, and thanks to everyone out there who has listened to the show, and God bless all of you.
And I want to second that. God bless everybody. Y'all have a wonderful what's left of the weekend, and don't forget to come see me Tuesday. We're going to have Mike Barra talking about ancient aliens on the moon and ancient aliens on Mars, and it should be an interesting show. And I hope to see you then. Good night, good afternoon, everybody, and y'all have a blessed weekend. Bye-bye.
We didn't attend church. We never once attended church as children. We were never baptized. Yet, even as a young child, I always had this blind faith in God. I knew that he was real. I knew that he was with me, but I didn't know anything else. And, here we endured all of these things. And again, the activity increased from that moment that I described with my mother into actual violent physical attacks on us from these demonic entities. And this kind of abuse went on for many, many years. And it is miraculous that I'm able to even give interviews in the way that I do. It's miraculous that I'm sane, and it's miraculous that I'm even here on this earth, because, my life could have went the other way very easily and very quickly. So, again, God had a plan for me, and I forever praise him for it. But, my dad was such a good man, and he was someone that was abundantly blessed with every physical attribute necessary to be highly successful in life. And it's just so sad the way his life turned out, because, this was someone I saw as a heroic type of individual that suddenly began to have an abrupt character change. And I think what was happening is he came under spiritual attack, and he didn't know how to deal with it. He was a man's man, very rugged individual, and was always in control of the situation. And this was something that he couldn't control. And I think that with him not being able to control the situation, it absolutely drove him and led him to try and escape this reality by drinking. And I mean, drinking very heavily. Again, my parents were social drinkers, but he began to drink very heavily, and he began to spend nights in the bars, and suddenly the nights turned into the days as well, and his business began to suffer, and everything. It was the downward spiral from there. And he unfortunately began to physically abuse my mother on a regular basis between 1973 and 1975, nearly killing her, on several occasions. And just, horrific memories of that alone. And family was decimated, and this evil force greatly contributed to some of the untimely deaths in my family.
You think you moved that force into the family with you when you moved into the building?
Yeah, well, it goes much further back, and I found this additional information out that someone in the family many, many, many years ago had done something to conjure these demonic forces, and it greatly affected the family. I was told by my uncle that my mother's brother, that my mother and her siblings, she had a brother and a sister, they were twins, and they all had paranormal supernatural experiences in their childhoods. And they moved around quite a bit as children, and at one point in their childhood, they lived in that very area near that house where these horrible events took place. So again, we see a correlation and a pattern. So it's my belief, based on that information, that my family was led to that house where evil was already present and manifest, and that's why it was so severe, because we were being attacked on two fronts, from the evil force that guided us there and the evil that was already present and manifest, because the area itself had and currently still has wickedness going on there, and a lot of just bizarre things have taken place in the area and continue to take place. I get messages from people to this very day who tell me about their experiences in their homes or whatever they may be experiencing in the area, and it's just quite amazing the messages I get just from that area alone.
Bill, pardon my interruption, but I wanted to mention your voice is breaking up.
Uh-oh. Is that any better now, Royce?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Yeah, so again, we see these correlations, and many people have been affected by paranormal supernatural activity in the Glen Burnie, Herondale area. I still get messages from people to this very day telling me about their experiences. And so my mom was the first to have an experience.
Folks, I don't know how I did this, but I loaded the wrong soundtrack again. That was Babylon 5. That was not my intro, so let's go without the intro today. This is Royce of Paranormal Palace Radio, also known as Redneck Radio Man. And joining me is going to be Bill Bean, and I've been trying for some time to get hooked up with him and get him on the show. He's got quite a story to tell. He's gone through a very, very upsetting experience in his childhood with ghostly and or demonic activity. He's experienced this here for many years. It caused a huge upset in his family, a whole big life-changing event that's all worked around to lead him where he's at today. So I'm going to let Bill, come in and tell y'all a little bit more about this, that he could probably do a lot better than I can. Bill, it's a pleasure to have you on today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Royce. And yeah, it's been a long time coming. And, I just want to thank you guys for having me on. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on with you. And, God does break things around in His time. We've been trying to do this for quite some time, and we finally achieved it today. So we praise Him for that. And yeah, I'm a walking miracle. My story is miraculous in the sense of being where I'm at now, and it has come full circle. I was a victim and experiencer of these horrific events, and it all began. I've written 2 books. My first book is called Dark Force. The second book is called Delivered, and I'm currently working on my third book, which is called 10 Steps to Victory. And, I say in Dark Force that it began in 1970 when my family and I moved into a 3-bedroom ranch-style home located in Glen Burnie, Maryland, in a community called Herondale. But it actually goes much further back than that, Royce. I found out additional information after writing Dark Force from a family member. I have very little family left. If I could tell you this, based on what I witnessed over and over, that there's no doubt in my mind he was under demonic influence while, under the influence of alcohol. And, when we're in a stupor, a state of being, under the influence of a drug or alcohol or whatever it may be, these demonic forces are able to really come in then and manipulate a person to do things that are way out of character. And I absolutely believe that's what was taking place, with him.
Right. Now, but you did say earlier that you was having this going on before, but you just weren't aware of it. And what I asked earlier, I don't think you gave a direct answer to. I don't think you quite caught. Was so what you're basically telling me is that this house may not have had no activity until y'all got there and you unwittingly brought it with you.
Well, actually, no, Royce. I believe that there was activity there prior to us going there because of the area. The area in itself has high wickedness, and there is a structure located 2 miles south from that house in the middle of the woods called the Witching Rock. And a good friend of mine, a retired police officer, John D. Romine, wrote a book about this. And according to his research, Native Americans used to gather and worship at that structure, saying that it had supernatural powers. And it is quite possible that it is a dimensional doorway or vortex or whatever it may be that allows these entities to come through. And it has greatly affected the entire area. I get messages from many people to this day in that area telling me about their experiences.
Okay. So now
we had a combination of, what had taken place prior to moving in, and then once we got there. So that's why it was so severe for us. I mean, we were just absolutely clobbered from all sides with this.
Oh, I would imagine so. I imagine I would have been too, spiritually and emotionally easily right from the beginning.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just thinking, but I was...
Experience in the house. And my parents were very good people, Royce. They were, my mom was a wonderful lady, great mother, great wife, homemaker. My dad, William Sr., he was a master carpenter. He was a contractor, very, very good man, hardworking family man. My mother, Patricia, again, very good woman. They were social drinkers. They loved to have family gatherings. And, we had some of these gatherings in the beginning. And it wasn't long after, though, that my dad's character began to abruptly change. And, again, my mom was the first to have an experience in the house. My dad had taken us, I have an older sister, Patty, and a younger brother, Bobby. And he had taken us with him for the day to allow my mom to unpack and organize alone in peace without us bothering her. And it's during the course of this that she felt the presence. She thought in her mind it was my dad sneaking back in to play a joke on her. And she spun around fully anticipating on seeing him. And to her shock, nothing was there. So as you can imagine, she was unnerved by it, taken aback by it, confused, but eventually able to go back to doing what she was doing. And that's when one of the bedroom doors slammed shut by itself, and that was enough to make her go out and wait until we returned. So that's where it began. And it gradually escalated into violent physical attacks on us from these demonic entities. And I have to tell you, I was 4 when we moved into the house. And the house had a very ominous look and feel about it from the very beginning. I was frightened. My first recollections of the house were not good ones.
Okay, now one of the things I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind me cutting in real quick, Bill, is were y'all originally Christians at the time you moved in, or did you devote your life to God after all the things that you ended up having to experience?
Well, that's a great question. My parents believed in God, but we didn't really have any faith-based structure in the sense that